So for today, so we ask our experts to prepare their best ideas for the rest of the year. No? So, April, would you like to share your top 5 picks?
My top 5 picks. Okay, I have a list there. Wait. um, well, every month I come out with a calling the shots recommendation. So for this month, I did some changes. First is because we usually well, we've been recommending BDO for the longest time, but for now, since it looks like interest rates are really going to go down, we think it would be more prudent to switch nga from pure BDO to SM, which has shares in BDO, and it's more of a consumer company. So SM, after delivering weak results for SM Retail, showed the turnaround the past 2 quarters, which were quite impressive. So yeah, that's one of the changes that we did, and we removed Converge because of the Konektadong Pilipino bill, the uncertainty that causes. Maybe that would keep Converge from going up continuously. But anyway, for the top 5 picks, since we're only talking about the top 5, we have CREIT, RCR, Security Bank, Pure Gold, and SM. Okay, so you might be wondering, so why do we have 2 REITs? Kasi initially I was thinking of AP, but the reason why I chose CREIT over AP is because CREIT is also a power REIT because it leases out its properties to power companies, solar power companies. And what I like about CREIT over AP is that they will be having a lot of asset injections, not only to start with the 4th quarter of this year, but also in the next few years. Because the parent company, CREC, has a target of adding 1 gigawatt of power every year. So for them to actually do that, they need to raise funding through CREIT. So asset injections yan. So magkakaroon tayo ng growth dyan in the next few years. And that's going to be very positive. For AP, I asked George about the renewable energy growth. And he said, yeah, they have until 2027. The problem is because it's already so big, the renewable energy growth will only be to the tune of 3% per year. So quite low, no?
All right. Okay, sige, so let's go through them one by one. No? So, or the first 2 we can lump together because they're both REITs. In fact, no, so you mentioned a while ago, may dalawang REITs, but yeah, to be honest, they've been doing very well. The REITs are all doing very well. So I guess my question first, because you already mentioned it, the asset injection. No? So just for the benefit of everybody, can you explain how asset injections really benefit the minority shareholder?
Yeah, okay. Well, one of the reasons why REITs are going up and are expected to go up, by the way, is the falling interest rates. So baka mag-unshine na kayo kasi di ba nauso siya 2021, 22, and then all of a sudden they went down. It's because interest rates went up. Okay, so if you have an asset that gives you like a 4% yield and then you go to the bank, you can get 5-6%. Ayaw mo na sa kanila, doon ka na sa bank, di ba? So that's why it went down. But now we're expecting to see the reverse, which is why if you look across the board, I think all REITs are going up anyway. So the reason why if you look at the REITs, I think CREIT and RCR are among the strongest. Yun nga, kasi because of the asset injection. So what happens during an asset injection is they'll buy new assets. They'll buy, kunyari, RCR will buy 9 malls. Okay, so what they'll do is they will buy it and then they'll compute what will happen to the yield per share. Kasi di ba, nagtataka yung iba. I think we have investors who asked, but they'll dilute us because they'll issue so many new shares. But what like I'll do as a REIT manager is I have to compute my total additional net income over the additional shares that will be issued. Dapat yung DPS, dividend per share, has to go up. Yeah. So, kailangan, that's what they mean when they say the acquisition has to be dividend accretive. Yeah, so yun yung mga asset injections.
Yeah, so they really compute that to make sure that the benefit of the additional income would outweigh the additional number of shares.
Yes, oo. Well, an added bonus is because if they issue more shares, their market cap increases.
Yeah.
Which increases the likelihood that they will be added to the index.
Yeah.
And when they are added to the index, the fund managers managing funds, will have to buy. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, since you already mentioned the index, no, so potential. So, which one are you referring to, CREIT or RCR? And what's the just to
Yeah.
be clear, just to be
Yeah,
clear,
RCR. CREIT is it's too small pa at this point. Even if they inject, they will not.
and any projected because as far as I understand, the latest announcement that they did is still undergoing some
Yeah.
regulatory approvals, right? Formality lang naman.
Mga 30 billion yun eh. 30 billion peso. Unfortunately, medyo bitin pa
For this round.
for this round.
The one in like maybe this
Yes,
month or
upcoming. But that said, the beauty about this is that the principal is also a listed company. And if you look at their presentation side by side, you know that this is not gonna end here. May isa pa. Actually, hindi lang isa. I think every year they will inject. Because what RLC plans to do is they're kind of implying that they want to inject everything into RCR. Because they have 300 billion worth of rentals, properties. And I think they have this 5-year growth plan. And they want to expand that rental asset base even more. So what they'll do is, how do you raise money to do your plans? And they want to do it by injecting it into RCR and then raise the money. And the money they'll raise will go into expanding their asset portfolio. And it was already asked, so they have 300 billion and they may actually inject all 300 billion. And I think even after this injection, they still have 170 billion left. So marami pa. Kaya next few years, I think they will be actively injecting, and especially if interest rates are low, they will capitalize on that to actually keep on injecting those assets.
yeah. So I guess that's the important thing. No? We have to look at the principal, the parent, no, the assets that they could potentially inject. No? So going to CREIT. So I guess that's my question. Marami rin bang asset injection that we can expect from the parent to go into CREIT?
Kasi nga the target is 1 gigawatt per year, which is huge. Huge capacity. And I mean, if you really think about the principal, the background, etc., they really don't have a lot of funds. So CREC, the parent, really, diba, they were able to raise 20% through a sovereign fund, Indonesian sovereign fund. But they're coming from such a small base, only a few megawatts. And then they want it to jump to 1 gigawatt and then roll out another gigawatt, which is huge. That's even bigger than the RE expansion plan of AP. So how are they going to do that? They really need to raise funds. So they need to keep on injecting and injecting. And in fact, CREIT is the only company that is taking advantage of bonds. Sila lang nagbabond issuance.
Why?
Okay, kasi nga they need the money. Usually, you don't want to do bonds because there's a tax-free exchange if you do an asset for share swap. Meaning, you don't pay capital gains tax, you don't pay VAT. But if you buy your properties from your principal using cash, you have to pay VAT. You have to pay capital gains. But since they're in a rush, they really need the money, then they'll use the bond offering and they'll do that. And by the way, kasi di ba baka magtaka kayo, yung mga familiar dito, there's a 3-year seasoning, di ba, of the assets for it to be mature, etc. So I asked CREIT about it. How can you actually purchase the properties from the parent if it's not yet 3 years? And they said kasi they were able to get an exemption because of the nature of the asset. Kasi once these assets are live, 100% leased out na yan kasi they're contracted. So pumayag daw yung SEC that they can already inject it. So in the fourth quarter, we're anticipating some injections and early next year. The details are not yet announced. But then yun na nga, if we wait pa until those details come out, naiwanan na tayo.
So that's very good, no? Because you're able to explain, because simply because of the need of the parent, they really have no choice but to really do the asset injection as fast as they can.
Yes.
Right? Okay. All right, that's good. Okay, I want to go to I want to look at the charts of these two issues, so CREIT and RCR, and maybe we could ask Sir Juanis about his thoughts on the technical side of the picture. I think, yeah, these two are very strong. No? So where can we enter? Can we enter now? I guess that's the question.
No. I don't know if they can help us pull up a graph right now.
Can we show the charts, please?
Okay, so in RCR's case, you can see that that run-up just came out. So you might want this thing to be able to slow down or little consolidation. The orange line is a 20-day exponential moving average. So that is your first shelf of support. So based on where you are, I think you're at 740 and that's at 715. So you might have to wait for a little pullback in action before potential buying. Ideally, in an uptrending market, you want to buy these things when they're closer to the 20 or 50-day moving average. Those are the sweet spot windows you should be accumulating at. Where it is, it's a bit too overbought. So I would wait. All right. For the other one, CREIT. Okay, so if you notice, it's kind of the same. So same plan, let that come back down to either your orange or red line. That should be able to give you a better support shelf to be able to warrant a potential trading buy for this. Anyway, remember, these are what April's plan here. These are longer term holds up because you're also getting the dividends aside from the appreciation. So as this comes down, you're just trying to be able to take away the potential dip that might come in and still get the dividend play that you're going to come in later, okay? So that's why I guess it's a win-win over the long, if you can wait for the dip and still get, a good return of the dividends. But clearly, they're both very nice charts.
All right, great. Can we go to your next pick, April? I think it's Security Bank, right? So yeah.
Security Bank. Okay. Anyway, for Security Bank, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, we talked about smaller banks being major beneficiaries of the falling interest rates because, first of all, smaller banks have larger or are more dependent on time deposits. Okay, and alam naman natin, time deposits, when interest rates go down, they pay less. So they will have a benefit in terms of funding cost from lower interest rates versus the bigger banks kasi mas malaki yung CASA. Current account, savings account. So those really don't move much. And then on the lending side, these smaller banks are also more dependent on consumer lending. And during a falling interest rate environment, alam naman natin, hindi naman mababa yung credit card interest. It's still 3% per month. No? It doesn't really change. So the more dependent you are on consumer lending, the better it is. Unlike, say, corporate loans, syempre pag bumaba ang interest rate, I'm sure tatawag agad yan sa bangko. Sabihin, excuse me, bumaba na po yung rate. Kung ayaw mo ko bigyan, doon ako tatawag sa kabilang bangko. Baka bigyan ako, di ba? So yeah, I mean, Security Bank will benefit more in that respect. Plus, the valuation is so cheap. It's 0.4 times. Even with the blip, the 10% increase, I think, last week, still 0.4 times price to book, which is really very cheap. And then dividend yield of around 4%. So making it very, very attractive.
Can you talk about there's recent news about them buying like 25% of home credit. Can you talk about this?
Yeah.
Do we like this?
Yeah,
or?
yeah. I think it's, the home credit is actually positive in the sense na strong growing consumer lending business, and the potential benefit is well, aside from the fact that it's growing fast, there are some synergies because that consumer lending segment is currently not being tapped by Security Bank. It's complementary to their existing consumer lending. And also, because I think since Home Credit is not a bank, so it has to borrow money from other banks, and I think it's borrowing from BPI. So one of the things they can do is they can borrow from Security Bank. So may mga ganong benefits. So quite positive actually for that.
And then lastly, in terms of their capital adequacy, I think,
Yeah.
could you talk about
Yeah.
is there a risk for them to
So,
raise capital?
Hindi rin eh. Because the capital adequacy went down, I think that may be one of the reasons why they were sold off. Diba? It was highlighted by one of the ratings agencies that, the outlook ba yun has been downgraded because of this reduction in the capital adequacy. But that said, the current level of capital adequacy is still well above the minimum requirements. And since we're at a stage where growth is, I think, wala namang 20%, mga 10% growth lang naman. So that level of capital adequacy is more than enough, or will give them enough room to grow their assets by, say, 10% per annum. So kaya pa. It's lower, but it's not alarmingly low to make us, worry that they need to raise capital or anything like that.
All right. Can we look at the chart of Security Bank, please? So, yeah.
I think I have a prepared slide for Security Bank, slide 57.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe we can-
Yeah, I think may cheating na. No? That's also one of your top recommended picks. No? So if we could show that.
There we go. So, so what we've seen recently is that the bottoming out process for Security Bank came out. It generated some higher lows, and now it just punched through a little bit over its resistance. So I'm really hoping that if it can stand above 72, then it can work up towards the next level, which could be closer to about 79 or 80. For this. But normally, in many charts that I've seen like this, remember what we said earlier, a lot of those issues that go up very sharply, there's a tendency for them to get sold off. So I'm anticipating as soon as this rally ends, you're probably going to see a pullback and consolidation in Security Bank. That will generate a higher low. So just be careful running after that price, right? So wait for the next setup to be able to show maybe a COIL or a small pattern before injecting yourself into this right now, because you missed already the first initial swing, right? Because from here to 79 is not the same as when you're coming from the 62 low that it had.
All right. Next one, April, Pure Gold. Could you explain why
Okay.
you like Pure Gold?
Yeah. So Pure Gold, we've been recommending this stock for a bit, and it has gone up a bit. Yeah, we're quite happy with that. The reason why we're still recommending it is because it will benefit from the appreciation of the peso through SNR. So inamin naman ng company, they will benefit, and what they'll do is they'll just increase the discounts for value, for, I guess, to boost sales even more, no? Because they want to generate more sales. And we asked them about the sustainability of the cash dividends. Is it a one-off? Is it not? And they said, well, recently kasi they've, the independent directors are more inclined to pay out the cash dividends, and they've been following the recommendation, and they feel that if the earnings remain strong, then there's no reason why they shouldn't pay out the huge cash dividends. So, and then in terms of PE, it's trading at 9 times PE. Well, it's not as cheap as it used to be, but 9 times is still very low, very cheap. So we feel that, there's still room for share prices to go up. And then we did a call with them, and one of the things that struck me is that they said that they were actually gaining market share in terms of the supermarket business, the Pure Gold business. So of course that would mean a slightly faster growth, which is positive.
Thoughts on hard discounters such as Dali?
Well, sabi nila parang okay lang naman. I mean, iba raw yung target ng mga hard discounters compared to them. So they're still okay naman. Um, I think yung kanila is okay. I guess the question is yung mga sari-sari stores, are they buying from Dali or are they buying from them? Sabi nila sa kanila mas bumibili pa rin because I think they can provide bulk. And then they can deliver yung ganun. So in fact they have more Aling Puring members daw today than during the start of the pandemic. So it goes to show, I guess they can do the wholesale, I guess, because of their size and the volumes that they have.
Okay. Can we look at the chart of Pure Gold?
I mean, you may have to be able to wait because it's already, I think, accomplished hitting its short-term target. There's been a recent rush, so if you can just imagine drawing an uptrend line there between those two lows that you saw between April and May, you'd probably see that a trend line sits closer to that red line, moving average there. So wait for a little pullback, but I'm quite bullish with this stock. It's just that it's just recently run up. Allow it to be able to ease off so that at least you can have some potential upside again. But I think, yeah, this should be an issue. Should be prepared to be able to buy back. So I think closer to, I can't see it from here. It's 32.
32.
I think, yeah, it's closer to
32.85.
32. Yeah, a potential buy for this.
All right, great. Your last pick, April,
Yeah,
SM.
Yeah, I talked a little bit about it, but just want to add, it has a share buyback program. It's 60 billion. So just to put 60 billion into context, 60 billion is 5 to 6% of its current market cap, which is quite substantial. And then valuation, so what does it mean if it's trading at 12.2 times PE? So 12.2 times is close to global financial crisis low. During the peak, I think SM traded at 35 times PE. So 12.2 is a very good price.
Okay. And in terms of the technicals, Sir Juanis?
Recently, it's had some decent movements. It's trying to break out that very much looks like your index, and because it's an major index component. So, on the same token, we needed to break free from that top area where it's having difficulty right now, and that should be able to allow more of a channel type of progression on SM. So, little dips, go ahead and buy it. As long as it doesn't break that low that it just generated like 2 months, less than 2 months ago, then that would be the area to beat. So if you have it, hold it. Little dips, go ahead and pick it up. But for upside mobility, a little bit more of a push would be better so that at least we can generate wider upside into the short term. But I have a hold for that.
Okay, great. So that's it, no, for April's pick. So RCR, CREIT, Pure Gold, Security Bank, and SM. Now we go to Sir Juanis' top ideas. So would you like to share your best pick, sir?
Okay, so maybe we can shift. Yeah. So just, well, very quickly, I just split into 4 categories. I mean, on the banks, I'd like BPI, well, Security Bank we talked about. In terms of utilities, so April just told me not to look at Converge, but unfortunately I have it there. So yeah, at least you can see we do our own science, right? It's not na mag-cheating muna ako kay April before I pick. The idea over here, anyway, we'll talk about maybe some of them, and then that way we can get you preview to what it is I have in my mind. Can I go through them quickly?
Yeah.
Okay, can we start with the first? So BPI has been correcting recently, so I'm looking at an opportunity buy over here. I know there's a lot of blue lines there, but wherever those blue lines, that's where I anticipate support. So if I see prices fall down there and I see it doesn't want to fall down anymore, that will be a potential buy for me in terms of BPI. The big picture is still a reactive channel, but since you're already more than halfway down, you have to be able to anticipate that where could be a potential buy for this, because I think BPI eventually will turn anyway and continue to move higher. So that's one. And then next, we talked about Security Bank, so we can go to the next already. Okay, so here's the controversial one. And Well, this one, it's falling back down to major uptrend lines. So unless those two blue lines break, I will keep myself on the bullish side and prepare myself that any moment now between hopefully 18, 17, 20 that we could see a bit more demand action. But just to keep ourselves on level here, if that second line breaks, then I may have to be able to change my mind. But right now, I'm still looking for a potential buy for Converge because it's been quite strong in its uptrend, and clearly it's very hard to find formations like this right now. So try to take advantage of the corrections that you've been seeing so far in issues like that. Next, please. Same token, Meralco is also another issue coming back down towards the lower end. So you can see a big channel climbing, and you want to buy this closer to the lower end of that range for a range trade. So closer to 500 would be the ideal price to be able to pick off a potential buy window for Meralco, and then your upside would be the extension of that red line down the road. Yes, URC. Okay, so this one, it's a bit of a challenge right now because we're at major resistance. So we're in a threshold that if broken, you might be able to see a bit more upside action into URC. So it's going to consolidate here because of that resistance. So try to maybe buy a little first. If we do see the range break, then just add to the position that you've already inserted. So at least you already have some. But I don't want to go full position right now because if that red line up there doesn't break, then that means it's going to be more waiting time for me. So just accumulate in this area and put a stop at that low that we had at about 81 for URC. Okay, these are smaller cap, not smallest, but smaller cap picks. Here's an issue that just moved yesterday. I really wish I had talked about this yesterday, but I can only give you what had happened already. So I've been tracking this for the longest time. I saw the preparatory pattern come in. In fact, I showed this as a stock pick the other day in my tech spotlight. So unfortunately, it broke out already. So what you want to do over here is if it can pause or recollect a partial of what it did there, then that could present an opportunity for you. As again, because I don't want to chase prices in this type of market, remember? So always look for setups rather than run-ups. Setup, that means preparatory consolidation before the run-up. That would be the ideal entry point. Upside of this, I'm looking between 152 to 160 as a short-term target. But that's a very big ascending triangle. I mean, it's very hard to ignore. Finally, another small issue I'm watching is MAC for a different particular trade. This looks like it's bottoming out, and I drew a rounding bottom on that base. It's also about to challenge the downtrend line here. So just like URC, if we punch above that downtrend line, then it would widen the prospective upside of this. I'm not very familiar yet with any recent fundamental developments. I don't know if you can share maybe as to why there's a reason that it could be possibly bottoming. But if it breaks through that, then you might have some short-term advances from here as well.
All right, so guys, read the tech spotlight also. No? Sayang yung SPNEC. Okay, April, would you like to comment on some, maybe just some of them, and maybe MacroAsia, may recent developments ba? Yeah.
Saan naman ba yung listahan ulit?
Oh, okay. Sige.
BPI, right? BPI, actually, we like it. The reason why we've never recommended it is because it's expensive.
But maybe with the correction now,
with
right?
the correction. And also kasi this, right now anyway, we feel that the attention will shift lang muna to the smaller banks. But I mean, all banks in general, hindi naman kami negative.
Yeah. And maybe the range lang, diba?
It's
There's
more
still
like, oo. I mean, yeah, let's wait for the opportunity to buy them at cheaper price. In fact, among the banks, BPI is personally one of my favorites in terms of fundamentals. Kasi if you look at the earnings growth, it's really been very good. And then they're quite successful penetrating the consumer lending business. So, in fact, it has one of the bigger consumer lending ports among the big three. So, I really like it, except, it's just gone up a lot and it's quite expensive.
Maybe I'll ask for Meralco, siguro? Meralco?
Yeah. Meralco, it's also a valuation issue.
Valuation lang.
Yeah, wala naman tayo problema dyan. In fact, among the bigger power companies, it's doing the best because distribution is quite strong. And then, of course, it has the Singapore business. Ayun. And then, yun na
You-
nga. Yeah.
The next set would be URC and Jollibee.
Okay, so URC, in fact, URC, I was considering it nga as one of the consumer companies that I would add. But, you know, URC kasi may turnaround. And one of the things that I realized while I was studying, may isang catalyst ito. Potentially, pag nag-earnings, we might see a surprise. Because I realized coffee prices are actually falling.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. It's been falling for 2 months already. So, yun yung isang issue ni URC. The rising coffee prices are, you know, hurting margins. And coffee is a big chunk of the business. So, coffee prices are going down. And it's because, I think, yun nga, it's also a beneficiary of, di ba, kasi nag-El Nino, so natuyo lahat. So, Brazil harvests were bad last few years. So right now, gumanda na siya kasi tapos na yung El Nino. Coffee prices are going down and it could actually benefit URC. So maybe, kasi initially my concern is maybe the sustainability of the turnaround. Baka mawala. So yeah, we might actually see a surprise from URC. So this one, okay.
Okay. Jollibee? Any thoughts?
Jollibee, we're more concerned about that because yun nga, the smash burger turnaround has stalled. They, you know, they did a misstep there. And not to mention, of course, the large exposure to the US and Vietnam, which are in a way vulnerable to the trade war. Yes. So, medyo nakakatakot yun. And also China.
Yeah.
So, you have those 3 countries that are vulnerable and the added interest expense due to the expansion. So, not too keen right now.
Yeah. Okay. And then last 2, SPNEC and MacroAsia. So, quick
Yeah.
thoughts lang on these 2.
SPNEC, okay, you might think is, diba, parang, wala. The reason why it's picking up is, remember, I mean, this SPNEC caught my attention a few months ago. Because remember, Meralco bought shares in SPNEC and they will use SPNEC as the platform for renewables for MGN. Kasi what SPNEC had was this Terra Solar project, which is a huge solar project. That will come online, I think, next year and will generate several billions. But anyway, so since you're all clients of COL anyway, you can search Meralco for our reports where George talks about the acquisition of SPNEC, the Terra Solar project, which actually, mind you, has a foreign investor. I forgot the name of the foreign investor. But yeah, this is gonna be worth billions of pesos. That's why I think tumaas yung SPNEC. And SPNEC is already 50% owned by Meralco, by the way. It's no longer owned. I mean, Leviste still owns shares, but I think they will completely exit from this slowly. And maybe, you know, they're waiting until the solar project comes online, then they will sell it to a third party, to some foreign funds. Yeah.
And lastly,
Yeah.
MacroAsia.
MacroAsia, well, I think on the negative side kasi the issue is nung na-privatize yung NAIA, the lease rates were adjusted significantly higher. So I think that they're getting hit by that. But I think the underlying business is still fine. And right now kasi may issue rin, I think, because they're operating at full capacity. So yung growth ng catering business is already stalling, at least in the short term. But I think nung earnings, may positive surprise naman ata on the airline operations. So, I mean, yeah, worth watching up.
Yeah. Especially in the next earnings. No?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that's it for our top picks. So if I were to summarize Sir Juanis' picks, so BPI, Security Bank, Converge, Meralco, URC, Jollibee, SPNEC, and MacroAsia. All right.